Most people hear the topic and immediately think it's shallow, a simple insecurity about anatomy. But psychologists know the truth runs much deeper. Men who believe their penis is too small aren't struggling with their body alone. They're struggling with identity, comparison, and the fear of not being enough. This isn't a physical story. It's a psychological one, shaped long before adulthood ever arrives. The pressure begins early, usually in moments so subtle that no one realizes they carried weight. A boy overhears older kids joking about size. Someone in school makes a comparison that becomes a quiet measuring stick. Locker room culture teaches that masculinity is something you prove, not something you grow into. And long before anyone becomes intimate, the idea forms: if I'm not impressive here, nothing else will matter. By the time adulthood comes, that idea becomes surprisingly resistant to reality. Because while medical research, including the British Journal of Urology's extensive measurements, shows that most men fall well within the healthy and normal range, the mind rarely listens to averages. The mind listens to fear. Fear of humiliation. Fear of rejection. Fear of being seen and immediately judged. This is where genital self-image forms, a psychological framework that influences confidence far more than the body itself. A man might have a completely normal size, but if his internal image says he's small, his brain treats that belief as fact. And beliefs can shape behavior more powerfully than biology ever could. When this belief takes root, it doesn't stay in one place. It spreads into dating, confidence, conversation, social behavior, even simple moments like standing in a group of men. It becomes a quiet filter through which everything is judged. Will I be compared? Will I be rejected? Will I be enough? These questions start following him into relationships, even when no one else is thinking about size at all. Partners can reassure him. Doctors can reassure him. Facts can reassure him. Still, the mind answers, they're only being kind. This is confirmation bias, and it's one of the strongest psychological forces a person can fight against. Once a man decides he is less, the brain begins selecting evidence that supports the belief and rejecting anything that contradicts it. What makes this even harder is how modern culture amplifies the insecurity. Adult content shows unrealistic bodies and edits reality into fantasy. Social media reduces masculinity to a competition, and even harmless jokes among friends can accidentally become emotional landmines for someone already carrying doubt. When comparison becomes the default setting, real human bodies, with their normal variation, suddenly feel inadequate. But here is the deeper truth most men never hear. Size is one of the least important predictors of sexual satisfaction. Major sexual health institutions, from the NHS to the Cleveland Clinic, emphasize that communication, emotional connection, confidence, patience, and responsiveness matter dramatically more. Yet men receive almost none of that education. Instead, they're taught performance before presence, appearance before intimacy, and comparison before connection. This distortion affects more than confidence. For some men, the fear becomes so strong that intimacy starts to feel like a test. They are destined to fail. They overthink, withdraw, avoid new relationships, or disconnect emotionally, even when they want closeness. Psychologists call this anticipated shame, the expectation of rejection long before it ever happens. The fear becomes so loud that the actual relationship becomes silent. But the most powerful layer of this fear isn't about partners. It isn't about sex. It isn't even about the body. It's about control. When a man believes his worth can be reduced to one physical detail, every intimate moment feels like handing someone else the power to decide who he is. And that level of vulnerability feels dangerous, even when the partner is gentle and accepting. That's why the insecurity persists, even when there's no physical cause. Most men who struggle with this aren't reacting to measurements. They're reacting to the meaning they attached to those measurements decades ago. Meaning shaped by social pressure, comparison, silence, and a misguided definition of masculinity handed down from people who were carrying their own insecurity. So, what does healing look like? It doesn't start with denial, and it doesn't start with forced confidence. It starts with rewriting the meaning, not the body. Because the body wasn't the problem, the story was. Healing begins when a man understands that his value isn't located in one part of him. That intimacy is built through connection, not competition. That a partner who cares isn't judging him, they're choosing him. That masculinity is too big, too complex, too multifaceted to be reduced to a number no one sees in daily life. The moment a man realizes his worth was never measured in centimeters, he becomes free in a way he may not have felt since childhood. Free to connect without performing. Free to love without fear. Free to be present without calculating how he might be compared. Free to understand that being chosen has nothing to do with the thing he spent years worrying about in silence. Because the truth is simple and supported by every major psychological study. Men don't suffer because their bodies are inadequate. They suffer because the world taught them to believe they were. And once that belief changes, the shame loses its power. If this helped you understand the topic with more clarity and compassion, like the video, subscribe, and share your thoughts below. Someone else might need the perspective you bring.